Hello there. You may remember me from this video. If not, don't worry, welcome. This video addresses the common misconception that many players feel when playing competitive games, that they feel that they're bad at the game, that they're not improving, and that their rank is their peak. Obligatory, I'm not a pro in the gaming or medical field. This is based off of my own experiences and a little bit of research. Watch it, make your own views on it. Don't just follow this video as if it's gospel. Right, now with that out of the way, let's slap a background game on, shall we? Yes, Rainbow Six Siege. Honestly, you guys over at the Siege community gave an incredible response to my previous topic, so the very least I could do is feature your game in the background. I usually main supports and anchors, in case you're wondering, operators like Rook, Thatcher, those sort of operators. I'm not the best at aiming, so excuse the mistakes in the background. However, I do feel that I'm slowly improving, so that's what counts, right? On with today's topic, shall we? So, do you feel that no matter what you do, everyone else on your team is better than you? That you're not improving, or you feel overwhelmed by how much there is to master in the game? Well, you're not alone. Many people feel the same way, whether they want to admit it or not. We'll explain both statistically and emotionally why this, for most people, isn't the case at all, and why you are better than you think you are. Let's have a look at the stats, shall we? Now, this next section may be a little rapid fire, but bear with me. Here are some statistics that may prove that you are better than you think you are. If you are Gold 2 in Siege or higher, you are better than the average player. If you are Silver 1 in League or higher, you're better than the average player. If you're Silver 2 in Valorant or higher, you're better than the average player. If you're Mid Gold in Apex, you're better than the average player. If you're Low Gold in Overwatch, around 2050 SR or higher, you're better than the average player. I obviously cannot cover every game, but the point of this is that a lot of people attribute these sorts of ranks to being a bad player, whereas this is far from the case. Even if you fall slightly below the average ranks, you're still better than tens of thousands, if not millions of other players. And that's not even counting the masses of players who haven't even taken the effort or commitment of becoming ranked in the first place. If you're coming from Reddit, hello by the way, I've left some more specific areas of where the average player lies in the text post. If not, look up the average stats of a player in your game, and if you fall into at least one of those areas where you're above average, be it KDA, objectives, accuracy, economy, etc., then you're doing well. You shouldn't feel so down about yourself. You just need to focus on the areas where you're not so hot. But what if you're in the depths of the lowest rank and you feel that you can't get out? You're in the proverbial ELO hell. Don't fret and consider this. How many hours have you put into the game? 100? 500? 1,000? Chances are you simply haven't put enough time into practicing or playing. Gobert and Campitelli, who are a master chess player and a psychological researcher respectively, did some research on how long chess players practice before they reach an expert skill level. They found that this can range from anywhere from 728 hours to 16,120 hours. This explains why some people are naturally gifted at games, whereas others it takes hard work and dedication. Whilst your competitive game isn't chess, obviously, parallels can be drawn from chess and many of the competitive games out there, which means for the average player, you'll have to sink in approximately 8,400 hours before you can be considered an expert. This means that even if you have 2,000 hours into the game, you're still less than a quarter of the way to becoming proficient, and that's just the average. Practice takes more time than you think. If you feel that you're getting nowhere, just take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Where were you 6 months ago? A year ago even, when you were playing your game? Chances are you would be able to beat the you 1 year ago. Unless you took a long break from the game, you essentially power creep your skill over time, even if you don't notice it. This is because the skill level of yourself and everyone around you is constantly in motion, and looking at your rank only gives a temporary snapshot of that motion. Just keep practicing. If you don't see the difference now, you will see it in the future. Other areas you have to consider are your age and even your genetics. The same researchers also found that starting at an earlier age allowed players to reach higher levels compared to those who started as adults. This is because there's often a window in childhood where complex and specific learning is acquired the easiest compared to any other point in life. And this is the major reason why I say, don't compare yourself to others. Often they have a completely different set of circumstances to you. By comparing yourself to your peers, you're practically comparing apples to oranges. There's almost no comparison to be drawn when looking at the bigger picture. But what if you only get 2 hours a week to play? Even at a minimum, that would take you upwards of 7 years before you can get good. So, what now? Fear not, there are ways of maximising your practice, but that's going to be for a later time in a different video, so stay tuned for that. Let's take a step away from the numbers for a second. Let's think about what makes us feel this way. A lot of people who are at an intermediate skill level will often find themselves disheartened by the fact that they will never be good at the game, and that they won't be good as their friends, or that there's simply too much of the game to master. This is what's known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. Let's go through it step by step. Put simply, you remember back to when you first played the game that you've sunk hundreds of hours into by now. That feeling of wonder, excitement, or even determination that you're going to be good at the game. This is the start of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where your conviction or passion for the game is at its highest, which meant that your perception of your skill was far higher than your actual skill. Not because you were bad at the time, but because you just didn't have enough hours into the game yet. This is what's known as the Child's Hill, or more abrasively known as Mount Stupid. You feel that you know everything, or at least most things, when in reality you knew very little, and you weren't conscious of it at the time. You didn't know what you didn't know. You notice how there's that particular character that people meme that is infamous for inting or throwing matches a lot? This is a good example of showing what the Child's Hill is. And this is due to the fact that a lot of people who start to play the game are drawn to that sort of character because they're marketed as a playmaker, a high skill cap character, or more bluntly speaking, pick this character to win more. And people who haven't grasped that the game has more depth than just killing gravitate towards them. Once you start to invest more time into the game, start to play ranked, and you get into that daily grind, you start to realise that there's more to the game than you initially thought. This mainly comes in the form of synergies, team dynamics, more niche techniques that you haven't considered before, and as a consequence, you start to realise and acknowledge that you didn't know much about the game at all. This is what's known as Insecure Canyon, or the Valley of Despair. This is where you feel ashamed, embarrassed, or depressed that you don't know much about the game at all, and that you feel that you'll never improve from this point because there's too much to take in. This is where, from the previous video, I said admitting that you need to improve shows that you have potential. At this point in the learning cycle, your perception and conviction are at its lowest, to the point where your actual skill is actually higher than what you perceive it to be. A good example I could show is, well, myself. I know that, or at least feel that I'm bad at aiming. It's pretty much the same for most FPS games. On occasion though, when I'm playing Siege or Valorant, sometimes I pull a triple, or even a quad, just seemingly out of nowhere, and just win the round then and there. Because I don't quite know how I pulled it off, combined with the low confidence in my aiming ability, I just instinctually dismiss it as lucky, or that I was just in the right place at the right time, when in actuality, that was a sign that I was improving. Sure, it's inconsistent, but the fact that I managed to do it even once shows that I have the potential to be better, that I can have good aim. This applies to you guys too. Think back to when you had that amazing moment. The simple fact that it happened means that you can replicate it. You just have to unlock that potential. You're almost there. The way that I see past this slump is to take a step back and take stock of the bigger picture, by splitting up the game into levels of complexity. These levels can be applied to the game as a whole or to a specific area. Allow me to show you an example. These are 5 levels of complexity that I've managed to split up from communicating with teammates. So level 1 would be just simply listening or following others. Level 2 will be simple callouts, so pings, room names, locations, etc. Level 3 will be more complex callouts, so you're looking at specific locations, sound callouts, what you think, maybe a bit of speculation as well, like you think this person's, above us. Level 4 will be interpreting callouts in real time, so if somebody does a callout to you, you can interpret it in real time, just like that, as to whether or not it's correct. And then level 5 is sort of planning intricate plans on the fly, so that say something's not working, you could just come up with another plan right there and there, tell your teammates in a convincing manner, and then it all works out. You then need to look at these levels and then ask yourself, what level am I on? And be honest with yourself. If you're not sure, look back on a replay or a VOD to see with your own eyes how you're doing. Once you've established this, you can then make a plan on how to improve to the next level of complexity. For example, say you're at level 2 and you want to get to level 3. I'm going to do a siege example here, by the way. You know the name of the room, but you can't remember specific features of the room. Your plan would then be to go into a practice tour along with a few guides on where people are normally positioned and note down descriptors so that the next time that you play, instead of saying kitchen, you would then say something like kitchen behind a large counter, and by giving that more specific location, you can then win more games. This helps split up your improvement regime into smaller, more manageable chunks, so you don't feel as overwhelmed by the large amount of depth that the game has to offer. Like always, no one plan fits all. You have to find your own strengths and weaknesses, and practice accordingly. For people who are at higher elos, this happens to you too, even if it's at a lower capacity. Think about the gap between Platinum and Diamond, or your equivalent, the rank that splits the good from the best. You'll find that even if you have a good understanding of the game, you'll quickly find that there's yet even more to the game, such as intricate team planning, frame-perfect executions, adhering or keeping track of the meta and balance changes. For those of you who are at this stage, I say this: hone your skills that you've learnt along your way to the position where you're currently at to a knife's edge. At this point, you've already got a good base of mechanical skill and game knowledge that you should be looking towards specializing into an area that you're already strong at, whether that be mechanical micro skills, good team play and macro, or excellent communication and awareness, or even just simply having rock solid mental. Once you feel that you've pushed past that one skill to the absolute limit, look to another area, and then another, until you eventually become a master of all. This, like all other things, takes time to do. Don't rest on your laurels once you're in the top 10% or even the top 1% of players. There's always more to learn. Most important of all, don't let arrogance take over. Don't assume that everyone is at the same level as you are. Everyone's journey is different. Some take longer than others, so before judging, think back to your own journey and your own mistakes and temper that pride. It will go a long way towards your performance in the long run. Remember, you will always have the potential to be better. Don't let anyone take that away from you. So, there we have it. I hope this video will help you understand and see past the problems you're having. Next time we'll be covering how to maximize your practice time and how to get the most out of your training sessions. Socials are in the description in case you want to ask questions, and I hope I'll see you soon.